Welcome to the Literary Titan podcast. In every episode, we dive into a book we've just read and share our thoughts, from best-selling authors to rising literary stars. We read it. Now let's talk about it.
Cruelty and Redemption is a memoir about Douglas Van Tassel's long passage from childhood terror to hard-won purpose. The book begins in a house ruled by violence, silence, and abandonment, then follows him through homelessness, street survival, drugs, fighting, juvenile detention, the Marines, San Quentin, a shattered marriage, fatherhood, powerlifting, coaching, and ultimately, the creation of a life centered on protecting young people who remind him of who he once was. What gives the memoir its shape is not simply the extremity of what Van Tassel survives, but the way he keeps returning to one central question. How does a person who was taught to become a weapon learn to become shelter instead? I found the book most affecting when it refuses to soften the damage. The early scenes are almost unbearable, especially the closet, the broken feet, and the terrible realization of a child deciding that no one is coming. Yet the memoir doesn't wallow in pain. It has an unusually clear moral memory, one that allows tenderness to appear without sentimentality. Grandma D, with her sandwiches, hard candies, and quiet willingness to play along when a lonely boy invents a grandmother for himself, moved me because the scene understands how small kindness can become enormous when a child has been starved of gentleness. I also appreciated how the book treats brotherhood with complexity. DJ and the crew give Van Tassel belonging and confidence, but that belonging exists beside drugs, violence, and danger. The memoir is at its strongest when it lets those contradictions breathe. The writing has a blunt, rhythmic force that suits the material. Van Tassel often writes in short, hammering sentences, and that cadence mirrors the mind of someone trained by fear to assess, endure, and keep moving. At times, the repetition becomes almost incantatory, especially around ideas of worthlessness, survival, and not quitting. I did occasionally feel the book could benefit from more restraint in places, since some reflections are repeated after the reader has already absorbed them emotionally. Still, the directness is part of its power. The ideas are not tidy, and I respected that. Redemption here isn't presented as a clean absolution or an inspirational slogan. The memoir carries real shame, especially around the boy who dies after the hallway assault, the video store robbery, prison, and the harm Van Tassel knows he caused. That honesty makes the later chapters feel earned rather than convenient. When powerlifting, coaching Robin, helping Marcus, and building a charity enter the story, they don't erase the past, they answer it. By the end, I felt I had read a memoir less about triumph than about responsibility. Van Tassel's move into family, business, coaching, youth advocacy, and public service feels powerful by the end because the book never lets us forget the boy in the closet or the man in the cage. The concluding image of the worn chair in the quiet gym is simple, but it lands with real weight. Here is a survivor who has built a place where other wounded young people can sit, breathe, and perhaps begin again. Cruelty and Redemption is a painful, candid, and ultimately humane memoir, and I'd recommend it to readers drawn to stories of trauma recovery, criminal justice, mentorship, masculinity, addiction, second chances, and the difficult, unfinished work of becoming better than what happened to you.
Thanks for joining us on the Literary Titan podcast. If today's review sparked your interest, be sure to pick up a copy of the book and experience it for yourself. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, or share it with a fellow book lover. Until next time, keep reading, not just to escape, but to grow.